everyone, Andrew here, and it's time for another book series review. I apologize for missing last month's video. I was going to do it and things went a little different. As you can tell, some things have changed a little bit. I bought a house. My mom and I bought a house, and it was in a different state, so I had to pack up everything we own, quit my job, move up here, and start unpacking everything, and yeah, I just didn't have the energy or the will or the desire to do a video, especially considering I was going to be doing this video, which I've been very, very wary and hesitant to do. I wanted to do more book reviews and book series reviews for a while now, but I figured out trying to do this series previously, because this is my third attempt to record a video for this series, that I can't do with book reviews about books that I've read in the past the same thing I do with books that I just read. Because if you've seen my book reviews, I go fairly deep. I break down most of the big plot points, most of the big stuff that happens in the extended story, including like the ending and some of that. And some books I can really do that with, and even in this series. And some of the books in this series, it's like, they fought a shark. It's like it gets a little harder to do that with. So and if the books are a little bit more obscure or a little more rare, or don't have as good of Wikipedia stuff or information to break it down and remind me what the plots were, it gets a little bit hard. Like this one is a fairly convoluted little book series. It's got a lot of stuff going on in it. And I tried to make a recording of it 2 years ago, and I hated the way it came out and I hated the way I sound. So I didn't want to do it again, but it'd been burning in the back of my mind since then. I was like, well, okay, if we can do this, there's a way we can do this. We just have to change the way we think about it and the way we're approaching this. So instead of going as in-depth as I have been in the past, I'm going to be doing more of an abridgment. Basically, I'm going to go over each of the books in the series, give a little synopsis of what the plot and the important parts is, but more akin to like the back of the book style than necessarily beat for beat everything that important that happens in the series. Then give you my thoughts on each of the books, if I like them, if I dislike this book, if it's worth reading or skippable, and at the end I'll give my thoughts on the series overall and which ones are have to reads and which ones are you can skip entirely. We'll see how this works. So, like I said, this is not my first time recording this one. Again, I tried it first time 2 years ago. I also tried it earlier this week, but all of the audio didn't record, so yay. And I'm still kind of worried it's going to do that again now. Hopefully I don't have to do this a fourth time. So today's book series is a little-known book series called The Young Wizards by Diane Duane. A lot of people have not heard of it. I'm sure there are a lot of fans of the book, and if you are, please shout out in the comments, because this is a really good book series. But for the people that don't know anything about it, they have a tendency to kind of label this as a Harry Potter knockoff kind of series, which you can kind of see why, because it is called the Young Wizards series, and it's about two young kids that become wizards. But this book series beats out Harry Potter by 15 years. This came out in the early 80s, and Harry Potter didn't come out to the late 90s. While it is about two young wizards, this is a far more real-world, kind of grounded a little bit series with highly fantastical elements. There's no wizarding school. You have to figure all of magic out kind of yourself. There are people you can talk to that will advise you, but they are mostly there just to give you information, not to actually, fight on your behalf. One of the biggest problems with this series is the fact that it is referred to as the Young Wizard series, because that really does make you just go, oh, Harry Potter. I don't like that title. I think we could have come up with something better. I refer to this as the So You Want to Be a Wizard series, because that is the name of the first book of the series. Let's go a little bit over that one. I'm also going to start off, before I get into the series and explain, I have not read the entirety of the series. The entire series is 11 books, and I've only read 8 of the books. But I am going to go through each of the 8 books that I have read and give you my thoughts on it and give you my thoughts on that series as a whole. And if I ever do get around to reading that 9th book and that 10th book, I will do a separate video talking about them. So let's get started. The first book in the series is called So You Want to Be a Wizard. The story revolves around basically young kids in New York City. The first one, who is Juanita Callahan, who everyone calls Nita. And she's 13 years old, and she's getting bullied by these kids in school, so she sneaks off and hides in the local library. While walking through the library, she ends up finding this book in the kids section called So You Want to Be a Wizard, and she finds it very interesting and provocative. And so she pulls it out and checks it out. On the way home, she gets attacked by her bullies who beat her up and then steal her space pen, which was a gift from her uncle. It is the same pen that astronauts use to write in space, type of thing. And she goes home, pulls out the wizard's book, and the book is basically empty except for one page that has the wizard's oath on it. She says the wizard's oath out loud and signs on it and goes to bed. The next day she wakes up, opens the book, and the pages are now full. And in the back is a directory that lists every wizard in the local area, and her name is now on the list. So she's like, oh, this is real. This is real magic. This is okay. And so she starts trying to figure out how to use magic and how it works. And magic works a little differently in this universe. It isn't so much about knowing a word or saying a word in a specific way. It's more about understanding things. Like, to use magic, you first have to understand the thing that you're trying to do, figure it out, and then work your way to figuring out how to use the magic to make it happen. It is a lot more puzzle solving and a lot more critical thinking, which is why not everyone gets to be a wizard in this universe. You have to have a really specific type of mentality. So she starts trying to figure out how to use magic. She wants to use magic to get the pen back from her bullies, and she figures out very quickly how to be able to talk to creatures and animals and plants, and turns out plants have their own consciousness and can think, and the plants inform her of another wizard in the area who is nearby, and she goes and finds him, and he is this young boy named Christopher Rodriguez, who's known as Kit, and he is hanging out, traveling around with his dog named Paunch. They realize that they're both wizards and they're both young, so they decide that they're going to start helping each other and use their powers together to try and get the pen back from the bullies. They find out really quickly that Anita is really good at nature-based magic. She's really good at working with plants and animals and things that involve the earth, whereas Kit is really good at technology, building things, using mechanical magic, things of that nature. They start trying to work on a spell to give them courage so that they can, fight and defeat the bullies and get back the pen, but the spell ends up going awry and they find themselves mentally being launched into another dimension. They find themselves in a dark, twisted version of Manhattan where there is no sun, there's no people, there's no plants, no life. It's polluted, it's dark, it's full of sentient machines that are actively trying to run them over. And they can sense and feel this dark cosmic presence there, and they can even feel it trying to find them and trying to locate them. And trying to get away from the power and protect themselves, they end up summoning this sentient star, comes to help them, who turns out to be a white hole. And they end up calling him Fred. A white hole is the opposite of a black hole, whereas a black hole absorbs everything and nothing can come out of it. With a white hole, things can produce from inside of it to the outside. But much like a black hole, that we've not found a white hole, but we believe it exists. And with the help of Fred, they manage to make it back to their bodies and back in the real world, and Fred is there with them. So they decide to use Fred to help them get back the pen from the bullies, and Fred uses his gravity magic to do so, but he ends up swallowing the pen and can't get it out. Nita and Kit realize that they need help, that they need someone to tell them what to do, so they use the back of their book to find the local advisory wizards, who turn out to be these two guys named Tom and Carl, who are a gay couple who are wizards, but they work to help teach other wizards how to use some magic, but they don't necessarily get involved with things unless absolutely necessary. But they're just there more from an advisory role. And they use their magic to try and get the pen out from Fred, and it manages to dislodge from Fred, but it doesn't arrive in our world. It ends up landing in that alternate Manhattan. They're like, well, you're gonna have to go and get it if you still want it. We don't recommend it because that's, the lone power is there. He is trying to hurt you. They're like, what? So they find out that the cosmic force that they were feeling that was coming, looking for them and coming after them, is a being that they call the lone power. Basically, the lone power is the overall force of evil in the entire universe. Literal embodiment of all evil and darkness in every story ever told. And the lone power is a giant cosmic being that produces miniature avatars of itself that it sends out to do it, and they're all connected and they're all kind of the same source. Basically, he's the devil. with a little bit of the Hinduism in it, where it's like, all of the gods are their own individual people, but they're all avatars for this one big uber god. So basically, the lone power is one big uber god that has a whole bunch of little avatars that sometimes know what the others are doing and sometimes not, and sometimes are very evil and sometimes are just a little evil. It varies depending on the book because they're all slightly different. They tell Kit and Nita that there is a way to get into that alternate Manhattan, that there is a world gate inside of Grand Central Station. I say inside, technically it is outside of Grand Central Station, high above, just off a very narrow ledge in the sky. So the two kids go into New York, go into Grand Central, climb up this building onto this ledge outside of the building, high up in the air, and it's like, oh, it's the portal's down there, you have to jump. So they jump, hoping that the portal is real and they're not just killing themselves. They manage to make it into the Nightmare Manhattan. They end up befriending one of the sentient cars who fights and tries to help them out. Basically, Kit and Nita find these stolen books that the Dark Power was holding to try and keep power over everything. And they manage to escape with the books, and the Lone Power follows them into Central Park and starts trying to kill them. And Fred uses all of his cosmic power, all of his being, to channel the sun into his body. He channeled the power of the sun into the spell book, giving Nita the ability to cast a spell to stop the Dark One. But Fred ends up dying in the process. And that's kind of how the first book ends. And overall, it's a really interesting, creative, well done entry point for these stories. You have really good characters, a really good setup. The dark, twisted Manhattan is a really interesting, creative, scary place. I also love the level of threat and danger these kids feel in all of the time. Like, these kids are not fighting against mean wizards or things of that nature. They are fighting the literal personification of evil. They are fighting the devil, and the devil wants to kill them and will kill their friends to get to them, type of thing. Friends of theirs can die. They are not saved just because they are kind of kids, type of thing. And no one's gonna like swoop in to rescue them. They are, for the most part, on their own. And it has threat levels that are missing from a lot of other kids' kind of stories. They do a good job of setting up what the magic is like and how it works and how you have to know something before you can use magic, and to know something you have to like think things through and figure things out. It has some good elements to it. There's some stuff that is a little bit kind of weird, like the fact that the advisor wizards kind of can't do anything and just kind of give you advice, and you have to figure everything, you have to do things for yourself and figure things out for yourself. It's kind of odd, but it has some great beats to it. If I was to look at this book in a vacuum, like if this was the only book in the series that ever came out, if this was a one and done book, I would probably say this book was just kind of in the okay area. Interesting idea, it has some interesting stuff to it, but I'm not necessarily blown away by it on its own. As a starting point to this franchise, though, it does a really good job of setting things up and setting up how the struggles will work and what these kinds of stories will be and what's going to be going on and how important these kids are, but also how they are just a piece in a giant puzzle type of thing. So overall, I'd say it's a good book, but it's not my favorite of this series. But it would be in my top 5, I'd say, of the 8. Of the 8. It's definitely, we are definitely going to get to the 2 worse books than this one. Let's put it that way. The next book in the series is called Deep Wizardry. Nita's family is going on vacation to the South Shore of Long Island. They've decided they're going to bring Kit and Ponch along with them. So they travel all down together, and we get introduced to Nita's family and to her little sister, Doreen. I'm not 100% sure how to say the name, but I'll call her Doreen. And Doreen already is a little bit younger, but she's very intelligent, and she's very interested in Nita's spell book. Even though she's not supposed to be able to read it, we see her constantly trying to look at it and trying to understand it. So while Nita and Kit are hanging out on the beach one night, they get visited by a dolphin who calls himself Hotshot, and he tells them there's a local wizard that is in desperate need of help, that they have been attacked and injured and needs assistance. They agree to follow him, and he ends up taking them to a giant humpback whale who turns out to be the wizard whose name is Shri, on the verge of dying. So Nita uses her blood and her magic to heal the humpback whale. Shri informs Nita and Kit about, that she is part of this ceremony, that there's this event that's about to happen that is called the Song of the 12. It requires 12 whale wizards to perform this spell to keep the lone power, who is in the form of a deadly killer shark, from basically destroying the world, causing all of ocean life to die and things of that nature. But now, after this attack, she is short people to do it, and she needs Kit and Nita to help her. Nita and Kit agree to help out. Shri informs Nita that because her blood has been mixed with Shri's blood, that Nita can now perform this magic spell that she teaches her that allows her to fully turn into a humpback whale. And not just in physical, but in mental as well. She starts to have whale-like thoughts and whale-like reactions to things. Unfortunately, she's not able to do the same for Kit, but she provides him with a cloak called a whale shard, which basically contains the essence of a particular species. Kit puts this on and allows him to transform into a sperm whale, but only in appearance. He still maintains his normal thinking and his normal feelings about things. They find out very quickly that this Song of the 12 is an incredibly dangerous event, and that it will require possibly the sacrifice, if not of one, if not all of the wizards, because they will be attacked, and Kit and Nita don't necessarily want to join out and do that, but they are already seeing signs that the lone power is starting to destroy the world. The waters are receding, plant life is dying, creatures of the sea are dying. It's being really bad. So Nita and Kit agree that they're going to go and start helping and start trying to make this song work and get the other whale wizards and everyone together to try and cause the magic to happen. And that's basically the second book for the most part. Honestly, though, this is a really good book. This is my second favorite of the entire series. It's got some really good ideas. I like the whole Nita having a hard time keeping track of what is her human thoughts and what are her whale thoughts, and not giving into one or the other. The lone power in this one becomes in the form of a master shark that they call Ed Rashtakasset, and that he is not evil, but not necessarily the evilest. Like, he is a necessarily part of nature, that this is a thing that has to happen, that it's not, like, violent and reasonable. Like, it is a cycle of nature that has to happen, that he is an important part of this cycle and this nature. It has some really interesting ideas. I love the idea of that every species has wizards of their own to an extent. Like, they're dog wizards, they're whale wizards. We find out later that Paunch the dog is also kind of a bit of a wizard and has his own type of magic. And it does some really good jobs of that. It does a decent job of setting up what the next book is going to be, because you get introduced to Doreen and her interest in magic and in what her sister is doing, and that she is actually able to pick out and read elements of the book. Like I said, this is my second favorite of the entire series. It's just got such good ideas into it, and it's such a quick, easy, fun read that works really well. Next book in the series is High Wizardry. This book is mostly focused on Doreen, and she gets Nita's copy of the Wizard Manual, reads the Wizard's Oath, and then she is provided with her own Wizard's Manual, which turns into the form of a sentient computer that she calls Spot. Having this new power, she's immediately like, I want to travel to Mars. So she starts casting magic to be able to travel to Mars, and she's smart enough and quick enough that she's actually able to get it started, and ends up traveling through a world gate to start heading towards Mars. Nita and Kit find out and try to stop her, but they are too late. Unfortunately, Doreen has run into agents of the lone power, and she escapes into one of the world gates and gets launched into the far reaches of the galaxy, and ends up on a uninhabited planet that is made entirely out of silicone. And now Nita and Kit have to travel through different world gates, through different parts of the galaxy, to try and find her sister. Meanwhile, Doreen figures out that the planet that she's on is not without life, that it is actually a sentient living computer. And she uses her computer to connect to it and teach it magic, and starts manipulating it, and she ends up creating a new type of life form that is entirely based on these computers. And the lone power finds out about this and is like, ooh, I like those. I want them to be my agents and work for me. So it becomes about Kit and Doreen and Nita having to educate this computer and teach it right from wrong and show it what it needs to be doing, while also trying to fight and stop this lone power and what it's trying to do. This is another really good one in the series. It's my third favorite. It's got a lot of really good elements to it. It does a really good job of setting up everything you need to know about Doreen as a character and what her motivations are and how she is this super genius, but doesn't necessarily always think through every step of the thing that she's about to do. And I find it kind of interesting and also annoying that she gets the upgraded wizard book in a full-on computer thing. It's like we have to read from physical books and you get a computer? But it has some really good elements to it, some great characters, some great interesting ideas, and it's just really fun, really creative, and a really good continuation for the book series. We move on to book 4, A Wizard Abroad. By this point in the series, Nita has already revealed to her family that she's a wizard and that she's learning magic, and they've seen enough to know that she's not lying and that she's telling the truth. And Nita's parents are very much like, we don't necessarily like how much you've been doing magic and all that stuff. So Nita, we're going to go send you to live with your aunt in Ireland for the summer. So Nita gets shipped off to Ireland and immediately starts seeing bad things going on in Ireland that have really weird magical connotations to it. She's having difficulty even using magic because it's like this is a very high-powered magical area. So she goes to see the local senior wizard of the area, who turns out to be this 14-year-old boy named Ronan Nolan, who she immediately takes a liking to and starts having a crush on. Through working with him and through figuring things out, she finds out that the lone power is gathering forces to create this ancient battle, and he's trying to change history, that he's trying to rewrite the history of Ireland so that he wins and he gains these powers. So it is up to Ronan and Nita to fight against this, and they end up calling in Kit, who travels and manages to get up there and come help them, and ends up in this big giant literal war battle between Nita's forces and the Lone Power's forces, and we find out that Rowan is a reincarnation of this ancient warrior named Balor, the Formian king, and he uses his magic and uses that power to tap in and summon a spear made out of light to fight and destroy the Lone Power. This is the first book in the series that I'm kind of meh on. It's pretty dry. It's a lot of her wandering around Ireland with just being like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay. It's a very slow book. There's not a lot to it. Ronan is an interesting character, and the final battle is pretty amazing, but in the long run, it kind of feels a lot pointless. Like, you get introduced to Ronan, which is pretty good, but he doesn't come into play again until the 8th book, so it's like there's not much here that you have to see or have to read. So it's kind of slow and kind of dry. It's not terrible, but it's just not amazing either. The next book is called The Wizard's Dilemma. Start of this book, Nita and Kit have long returned home at this point. Nita finds out that her mother is very sick and has a brain tumor. Nita wants to, cure her mother, save her mother from this tumor, and so she decides to try and find a magical means to do it. She ends up meeting this wizard named Prela, who teaches her about these things called the kernel, which are basically little magical software inside of beings that embody and control the area around them. So basically, if you can get your hands on one of these, you can use it to manipulate and change the environment as you see fit. And she believes she can use that to cure her mother of cancer. During all this, Kit has figured out that his dog Paunch has been traveling into different universes. So he follows his dog, and they travel together, and they find out that Paunch also has the ability to, if he goes into a universe and there's not a universe already there, like if it's just a void space, he can manipulate it and create it and make it whatever the heck he wants it to be. He also gains the ability to travel into people's souls, into people's bodies, and things of that nature. So Nita uses her magic to travel into her mother's soul to find the kernel and start trying to get rid of and destroy the tumor. But it turns out that the tumor is connected to the Lone Power, who starts trying to fight back. Kit shows up and tries to help her, but both of them end up getting overpowered. And Nita ends up using the kernel to summon her mom into her own soul and gives her mom the kernel, and she uses that to empower herself and literally starts beating the crap out of the lone power, and gets to the point where she's destroyed it almost entirely. There's just a sliver of the tumor left, and she stops. And she looks at the lone power and she's like, if I use this, if I kill you and cure myself, I'll be starting down a path that only ends with me wanting nothing in the world but to keep living, to keep extending my life, to keep going. I'm not going to do that. I am choosing to live my life, what's left, with the people that I love. And she lets the dark power go and still has some of the cancer in her, but is choosing to live her life to the fullest with the time that she has left. And that ending sucks. Like that ending, and it's a shame because the entire rest of the book is really, really good. I love the introduction of the alternate universes and how dog magic works differently than human magic, and that, the idea of these little kernels, and like it reminds me a lot of like if you learn the thing's true name from other stories, like you learn its true name, you can manipulate it and change it. It works kind of like that. But you get to that ending, and that ending is so bad because it isn't well thought out or explained. For starters, it's cancer. Like, if you don't get rid of all of it, you're going to get cancer back and you're going to die. So, and as far as I remember, as far as I could tell, there's no consequence to her getting rid of all the cancer, except that she may want to keep trying to live longer. And it's like, yeah, that's everyone who's ever gotten cancer wants, is to live a little bit longer. That's how you survive it. I mean, I could understand it making some sense if Nita's mom was also a wizard. Like, if she could use magic, then she could, actively be looking for ways to extend her life as long as possible. But because she is just a normal human being, like, even if she wanted to find ways to extend her life as long as possible without, going to wizards and begging for help, she's kind of SOL. So it's like, if they had been better explained, like if her destroying cancerous thing caused her daughter to get cancer, or caused an earthquake to happen in another part of the world, or some, butterfly effect horrible thing could happen as a result, and, teaching her daughter to choose the many over oneself, that could have worked. But no, it's just this, like, lame, like, no, I could kill you, I could destroy you and end it now, but I'm just going to live with cancer for as long as I can. And it gets even worse when the next book she's not in, because she dies in between books. And it's like, at least when you read this, you're like, okay, well, it's sad she still has cancer, it's sad she's going to die, but at least she might be in the next couple of books, so she can at least see her very young children grow up and, become adults to a certain extent, and she's dead before the next book comes out. Like you have a 14-year-old daughter and a 9-year-old daughter, and you're just going to leave them when you could have cured yourself of cancer. It just falls flat with that ending, especially when you know that even though they won, they completely lost because she's dead by the next book. Yeah, I kind of get what the author was going for. It doesn't work for me. We then have the next book in the series, which is A Wizard Alone, which, as I said, Nita's mom died between books, so now Nita is depressed and wants nothing to do nothing, so she spends the majority of the book not doing anything. Gets really rough with this book series because this is a book series where every chapter is another person's perspective. So you'll get a chapter that's from Kit's perspective, and you get a chapter from Nita's perspective, and it ping-pongs between the two. And it's really annoying in a book like this because Kit's off doing something interesting and important, and then every chapter you're going back to Nita, who's just sitting in a room sad and doesn't want to do anything. While Nita is sad and in a room and doesn't want to do anything, Kit has been asked by the wizard advisors, Tom and Carl, to go look for a local boy named Gerald McAllister. That he has some importance and that he's been missing, something is off with him, and they need to go and check it. So Kit goes and finds this boy, and he turns out to be this seemingly normal 8-year-old kid. Seem a little autistic, but Kit can tell right away from a distance that something is off. That he is very kind of vacant and not there, and something is missing. His soul is not radiating from his body. So he uses his dog's magic and travels into Daryl to figure out what's going on, and they finds a giant labyrinth maze. and runs into the kid who appears to be like a normal 8-year-old kid for the most part, and he has been running for months, being chased in his soul by the lone power. Kit finds out from the advisors that Daryl is a Abdal, and an Abdal is a literal magical power source. He basically provides magic and power for the entire area. Basically, he's a giant magical battery that powers everything, and if the lone one can get to him, he can turn all of that off or reverse it and make it power himself instead. Kit tries to get Nita to help. Nita's like, no, I'm not helping. So he goes back in to try to help and rescue Daryl, but is unsuccessful. Nita finally, comes to terms with her loss and realizes that her mother wanted her to learn how to live and to keep going. So she manages to get in, helps get Kit and Daryl free. They show Daryl magic, so Daryl uses his magic to capture and imprison the lone one and manages to defeat him. And they go and check in Daryl in the real world, and he is a perfectly normal, happy boy with none of his autistic things that he had before. And he is like, oh, it's nice to know there are other wizards there, because he now thinks that he is a wizard. He doesn't realize that he is actually much more powerful than them. And he can't know. They are like, literally, you can't tell him if that happens, bad things will happen type of thing. So this book is a rough read, especially if you read it back to back with the last one like I did. Because again, the last book ended a little bit well, like, okay, well, she gets to live a little bit and, and then it's just a whole book of Nita being depressed and not doing anything. And you also have her sister being depressed and not doing anything. And it's just like, oh, it's just such a rough read. And it's a shame because like the other part of the book is pretty interesting. Kit and Daryl and the maze and all that stuff is kind of cool. I don't kind of like the fact that they blamed his autisticness on the being chased in the thing because he's not connected to his body, so he's less autistic when he fully returns. Although he might still be a little autistic, it's hard to say. But it's just like, no, he's a normal boy type of thing. It's just kind of like, oh, and stuff. But it is a rough read, and I can completely understand someone skipping these two books because you have to be in the right mindset and the right temperament and the right fortitude type of thing. Like, if books like this make you cry, this will be a rough read for you. Like, thankfully, I'm fairly stubborn, but it was still like just the literally the book beginning with "and Mom's dead." It's like, oh, still hurts me to this day. The next book in the series is A Wizard's Holiday. Doreen wants to sign up to do this intergalactic exchange program, where basically she would exchange places with a wizard on another part of the universe and learn a different type of magic through that. She signs herself up, but doesn't get approval from the local wizards, so they show up and they're like, actually, no, you're not going, Diary. But you know what? Your sister Nita and Kit are. So they transport Nita and Kit to this tropical planet that is basically paradise. They're on a beach. Everything is perfect. Everything is happy. Everything is lovely. That's them for the most of the book. Now, Doreen is stuck on Earth, but she has to take care and keep track of the 3 alien exchange wizards that showed up that causing lots of trauma and lots of trouble right away. You have the 3 are Philippe, who is a alien wizard that looks like a Christmas tree, and he has a tendency to like steal hats and put them on different branches and thinking that looks really pretty. And the funny thing with Philippe is that he's a tree, but no one knows how he gets around. Like, his base, where his roots would be, is completely covered in a thick magical fog, and so no one can tell if he has feet or if it's the roots rolling around or what. You have Sker'ret, who is a giant metallic centipede who can eat pretty much anything and can produce lava. And then you have Roshan, who looks humanoid but is actually an alien prince that comes from a planet called Wakelt. And he and Doreen immediately start clashing on personalities because he's very arrogant and very opinionated, and she is also very arrogant and very opinionated. So the entire half of her book is just her trying to keep these wizards in line, trying to keep the secret from coming out, trying to keep them from destroying the earth type of thing. And then they also find out that the sun is slowly starting to die. So all of them travel into the Earth's sun, and Roshan uses his magic to basically reignite it and keep it alive. Meanwhile, Kit and Nita have done nothing for the entire book. They've just been hanging out on the beach until the last 50 pages when Paunch travels into this cave and they end up finding the lone power. And he is trapped inside of this cage, and it turns out the wizards of this planet trapped him in there because he was sent to start the next cycle of evolution on this planet. That the current species is at the end of their living date, and it is time for the next cycle of life to continue on. And the wizards of the planet did not like that, so they imprisoned him there and have basically been living in this perfect bubble of the last day of their existence. And so now Nita and Kit have the question of, do we leave him there, save the species, but break the natural cycle and the way things are supposed to be? Or do we let him out, keep nature the way it's supposed to be, but sentence this entire species to death? And that would be a really good, interesting question and conundrum if that was their decision to get to make. But unfortunately, they brought another wizard from that planet there named Quelt, who makes the decision for the entire planet and lets the lone power out, and all of them blink out of existence in a second. Kit and Nita return to the surface, see that there's no life on the planet anymore, and travel home. As soon as they leave, though, a new form of life comes out of the water to start the next level cycle of evolution. This book is really dull. It's very tedious. Every time it cuts back to Kit and Nita, they are doing nothing and nothing is happening, and they get big, long chapters of them doing nothing. And it's really a shame because everything going on with Doreen and the three alien wizards is so funny and so interesting and so creative and just a blast from start to finish. And then you cut to Nita and Kit doing nothing. And it's just like, ugh. This one was the hardest to read for me because it was so boring. It was the first one I actually really struggled with and kept putting it down and not wanting to pick it up. Like, it was rough. And I completely understand skipping this. Honestly, I recommend if you are going to read this, skip Kit and Nita's scenes. They're not worth it. But everything with Doreen and Roshan, great. That's fun. That's a lot of blast. The next book in the series is Wizards at War. This is the 8th book, the last one that I read. So Nita and Kit make it back to Earth, and immediately things start to go wrong. The entire sky goes black. There's no stars, no light of any kind, and they find out that the lone power has found and started manipulating this new form of dark matter, and he calls it the Polis. Not only eclipsing the entire universe in darkness, it is actively preventing senior wizards from being able to use magic. So the only wizards that still have magic are the children. All of them travel to the moon to start getting ready to fight and getting ready to do that. We have Nita and Kit, Doreen and Roshan, as well as Philippe and Sker'ret. And they run into Ronan, who's there to help. They also run into Daryl, but he takes off pretty quickly. So, and they figure out that it's like, okay, even with all these kids here, there is something we need to find a weapon. There has to be something that we can do this. So they start traveling to different parts of the galaxy together, trying to figure out how to stop this, how to deal with this, and it becomes this big chase and fight where they're constantly being attacked by different agents of the lone power and it's like thinking they get the advantage and they don't. Finally, they get to the point where they're like, okay, so they go back to Earth and they gather everyone up and start trying to create a spell that'll help them, hold back the darkness and hold back the fight. The lone power shows up and starts trying to attack them, and Roshan channels the power of the star into his body and uses it to try and fight off the lone power, but this only works to slow him down, and it ends up causing Roshan to dissolve, basically, and disappear. Paunch realizes and figures out that he has to tap into the highest level of canine magic called the Canine's Choice, where he gives up his entire body, his entire spirit, and becomes the this giant wolf-like being called the One, and he uses it to fight off and destroy and kill the lone power. But once it is done, he turns to Kit and is like, "I'm sorry, like I had to do this, and now things can't be the same. I can't be your dog anymore. But know that some things will always stay the same, and I will always be part of you." And he dissolves and turns into starlight and becomes one with the universe. Kids return to Earth, and Doreen starts trying to figure out what happened to Ashawn and see if there's a way that they could possibly bring him back. And Kit is traveling around, and he ends up coming across this stray sheepdog that he finds out has a part of Ponch's soul inside of it. So even though he can't be with Ponch anymore, part of Ponch still can be with him. And that is how the book ends. And this is legitimately my favorite book in the entire series. Like, this book is amazing. This is Avengers level of storytelling. Like, the entire series feels like it was building up to this book. Every character that we've met, everything that's happened is all coalescing into this big giant fight for the end of the world, and it has such great stakes and such great danger and such great fights to it, and it's like just builds in so well, and it's so good. It was like it's legitimately my favorite in the entire series, and it's also the one that I stopped at because I own the next book, which is the ninth book of the series, called A Wizard of Mars, and I've had it for a good few years now, and I'm just like, I don't feel that I haven't gotten the urge to read it yet, because this felt like the culmination. This felt like the end of the franchise. I don't even have to read it to know that the next book is probably not going to live up to this. Like, it really doesn't seem possible. Like, it's kind of like going from Endgame into like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where you're like, we got so big, and now we have to go back to being smaller stories, and it's like, oh, I haven't read Wizard of Mars. I don't know if it's great or not. It probably is a good book. I'm like, this author is pretty decent for the most part, but I don't know. But I really like the elements of this. I like the fact that there were real threats. I like the action of it. It felt like a real final battle stuff. Really great thing to have after 4 books that were all kind of iffy. So, it's nice to have an actual great, amazing book again. Yeah, that's as far as I got reading in the series. Like I said, the 9th book is called A Wizard of Mars. There's another book that is just a collection of short stories that's called Interim Errantry. And then you have Games Wizard Play, which I also own and have not read yet, because, yeah, if I ever do get around to reading those books, I will do individual reviews on both of them to keep you guys updated and all that. But yeah, if you've read those books, let me know if they're any good. If I'm missing something by holding back on it. It is unfortunate that we are only at an 11-book series. It was going to be a 12-book series. She was working on a 12th book that was going to be called Wizards in Shadow, but the last we heard about that was in 2012, and the last game that Wizards played came out in 2016, and so yeah, it's been a decade. And she's still alive. It's entirely possible, but it is unlikely. But, one can hope. So, my thoughts on the series overall is that it's an extremely interesting, creative, well-done series with lots of good characters, good story elements. I love how dangerous the world feels. I love how much of a threat the lone power is, and how these kids are in danger and have to actually fight and work hard to, change things, because the lone power could kill them at any time, type of thing. And people can get hurt, and people can die, and you can lose friends. It's like, it has really good elements to it. Good use of magic. I love the way the magic works in this series. It's got so many interesting elements, but it can get a little tedious. It can get a little repetitive, and then there's just some moments where you're just kind of like, what? Okay, and you're just kind of scratching your head, or moments that are extremely impactful and sad and just kind of drain some of the life out of you. Some of the books are extremely well worth your time, and some of the books are a little bit more iffy. Like, I highly recommend reading the first 3 books. Like, those 3 books as a trilogy are near perfect. Like, they are so interesting and so creative and do such a good job of setting up these characters in this world and all of that. Book 4 is You can pretty much skip it. Like it's got some moments and it's okay for the introduction of Rohan and that final battle, but it's also dry. Book 5 and 6 are really good if you can deal with the emotional damage of the plot of those books, and that can be a bit rough, and I can completely understand choosing to skip them for that reason. Book 7, The Wizard's Holiday, you can skip pretty much. It's like literally, if like I said, if you really want to read it or you have a real interest in it, I would really recommend everything going on with Rashawn and Doreen because that's really interesting. But the everything going on with Kit and Nita on that tropical planet is boring as heck. And then of course, book 8 is absolutely amazing and really well done, well worth your time. Absolutely loved it. But that's just my thoughts on this book series. What do you all think? Have you heard of this series? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Am I wrong about some of these books? Is book 4 and book 7 actually amazing? Or is there stuff that I didn't explain well that you'd like to explain better? Please let me know in your thoughts in the comments below. Do you like this format? Let me know about that as well, because there's other series that I'd love to do this with. Until then, happy watching, happy reading. I'll see you all next time. Bye.